Now we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of what Indians are all about.
I still say we Indian people are believers in the truth. This is the way of life that was given to your people. You're born an Indian, you're going to die an Indian. Indianness is a good life. You're facing an Indian this afternoon.
Good Saturday afternoon out there, everyone, and welcome to your number one source for Native American television news. That would be Muskogee Vision, and I would be Jason Salzman, your host, here in the Muskogee Media Studios. And we've got a great show lined up for you this week. Lots of stuff to get to, lots of big news happening here in Muskogee Creek Nation, lots of people to talk to about that big news, including a lawsuit against the Indian Health Services to recoup some monies that weren't paid to our health service, allegedly from the Indian Health Services. So we'll talk a little bit in depth more with Principal Chief James Floyd about that lawsuit and some health officials as well. Also, we're going to take you to the Yuchi House in Sapulpa. The Yuchi people, there's not many speakers left, but the Yuchi Language Project is doing all they can to make sure that there is a generation of speakers coming up behind those that are left. So we have that. Also a conversation with Pat Crofts about sports betting in tribal casinos. All that and more after this first break. You're watching Muskogee Vision.
Make a memory by coming back home. Make a memory by immersing yourself in Muskogee culture. Make a memory that will last a lifetime. Make a memory at this year's 44th Annual Muskogee Creek Nation Festival in Okmulgee.
Make your memories with 4 days of free family fun at the Muskogee Creek Nation's annual festival, June 21st through the 24th in Okmulgee. For more festival information, visit creekfestival.com. All right, welcome back to the program, and our first feature this week takes us to the Principal Chief's office, James Floyd here at Muskogee Creek Nation. Recently, the tribe announcing a lawsuit seeking to recoup more than $94 million from the Indian Health Services for money allegedly not paid from 2006 to 2014 to the tribe from the Indian Health Services. Now, won't give you all the information because that's why we're showing the interview with the Principal Chief, and also we talked with Secretary of Health, Mr. Sean Terry, but won't give you all the information. We're going to let Chief kind of outline some of that, but a very big lawsuit and a very big topic. We discussed it on the table last week, as you saw, but now getting granted the interview with the Principal Chief, we definitely wanted to follow up all that information that we shared last week with information straight from our top executive here at Muskogee Creek Nation. So this is the interview with Principal Chief James Floyd on the IHS lawsuit.
Well, I assumed office in January 2016, and probably that month, in looking at the health deficit, we did uncover the fact that contract support costs for a number of years had not been adequately calculated or paid by the Indian Health Service. And so we began to pursue that and gather data on that matter in January of 2016, and it did precede the administration by a number of years, I think about 10 years. Well, we believe that through a lot of hard work by the staff we have now, that we've corrected the calculations. And let me also clarify that it's not really a simple thing. Because we're a self-governance tribe, we do have a number of shares that comes from the Indian Health Service, and each one of those shares has an attached contract support cost element to that. And so the challenge to us was to go back and make sure that we had everything identified and everything calculated, so that we made sure that we were getting the resources that we were entitled to in contract support costs. So, you know, I got to give kudos to the staff that were working on this, the self-governance coordinator, because they did a very good job in leading that effort. If there's any correlation, it's a very loose correlation. And we can go back to the end of the Ellis administration, when there was actually a healthcare department excess. And so we knew at that time they had money reserved and put back. And so we weren't in a deficit at that point. And, you know, that's another lane that we had to work and to clarify, and through Mr. Terry and his staff, they've done an amazing job in that. But the contract support cost has been an issue that actually I knew about even before I was elected. You know, as a former Indian Health Service employee, I was very much involved in the first calculations of contract support costs back in the 90s. And so, you know, I knew kind of we had some weaknesses there. And if you don't stay on top of these tables that calculate the contract support costs, then you will not receive them. In a sense, to me, it's been kind of a personal issue, because I, you know, worked in the Indian Health Service in upper management for 11 years. And so it's been kind of tough to go back and talk to people I'd worked with and say, you guys have not stepped up to the plate. And so we started at the area office level and talking to the area director, the regional HHS office out of Fort Worth, and the secretary's office. And, you know, personally, to get frustrated by getting no answer, no response, no offer to documented deficiencies in their system that we've identified and corrected and calculated what they owed us, we had no other recourse but to take it to court. We were able to get a firm that's working on a contingency, and so it's not costing the nation anything right now. And I feel very comfortable and confident of the outcome of this case will be favorable to us. But we just, you know, we hesitated about filing. I did, because I know the folks that we're filing against, and these are people that I had worked before. But I also met with them and I said, it's a shame that you aren't making this decision, because it's in your court and you should have, you know, take care of this responsibility, and they didn't. And this formalizes the complaint, gets it into a venue where they have to respond, and so we will see this thing through. The benefit that I think the citizens will see is that it will provide us resources to do some things that we would like to proceed with. You know, it's administrative support costs, and so we've kind of had to use administrative support cost money for, that would normally be funded by the Indian Health Service. It's been funded from patient care. Now, we're not in a deficit. We've not been in a deficit situation for, you know, some time now, because we've turned that around. The contributing factor wasn't contract support costs, but it's a fund that supports the direct services. So, you know, we want to make sure that's correct. We're corrected now. I believe we're receiving the appropriate amount that we should receive, but we weren't for a period of time beginning in 2006. And, you know, different administrations, I think, approached it differently. I just, having, you know, knowledge of it from the outset, just felt we had to get on this. Well, having worked in the Indian Health Service, I could say I was on the receiving end of being sued for the same thing back in the 90s. We prevailed in that case because we had everything documented, and at that time the Indian Health Service didn't have sufficient money to pay that, and out of the case that was from the Portland area Indian Health Service arose the requirement that they fully fund contract support costs. Our case is different in that it's the calculation of it and the recognition by the Indian Health Service of how we calculate contract support costs. So there's been other suits, yes, so we're not the first.
You know, the issues that we deal with and struggle with every day is that Indian Health Service, the federal government has funded Indian Health Service at about 30% of need. So every day we're struggling to have the resources to provide the level of care that our citizens deserve. So this lawsuit, going back to 2006, is us trying to ensure that we're maximizing the amount of funds that we're eligible for. So our responsibility is to make sure that we're maximizing that and to stretch those dollars as far as we can. But at the end of the day, we want Indian Health Service fully funded so that our people can be taken care of at the level that they deserve to be.
One is that we feel very comfortable that we'll prevail in the case. We have a very good firm, and for the citizens, it's not coming out of healthcare money to pay for the cost of the suit. They're working on a contingency, so you know, if we don't prevail, we're not out any money. So yeah, you know, this will benefit the nation and our citizens and our patients.
All right, I want to thank Principal Chief James Floyd and Secretary of Health Sean Terry for joining us and giving us a little bit of insight into the issue, and we'll continue to follow it and keep you updated on MuskogeeMedia.com and here on Muskogee Vision. Well, as I told you in the opener, we visited the Yuchi House here recently in Sapulpa. The Yuchi people, very close relatives to the Creek people, and also but their own language, and that language is just like many indigenous languages, it is disappearing. There's less and less speakers. So the Yuchi Language Project is a nonprofit organization that has really worked hard for the last 15 years, really working with the United Nations, the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Languages, Indigenous Issues with the UN, and 2019 coming up, the Year of Indigenous Languages. Now, this is the story of Maxine Barnett, the oldest living Yuchi speaker, with the youngest living Yuchi speaker. We hope you enjoy it.
Agalasan, ZTA, Maxine Wildcat, Barnett, AZT. I was born into a Yuchi speaking home. But when I had to go off to school, to a boarding school, in my high school years, I got away from it. But when after I graduated and came back to Sapulpa, Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I had to work, and but I never forgot my language. I knew the words, but there were so few Yuchi people at Chilocco where I went to school that I never got to talk to anyone. My brothers and sisters were there and a few people I know, but we were all in different buildings according to our ages. So I see them and wave at them and maybe talk to them just a little bit, but not we just weren't close anymore. But we saw one another, and I guess that was just enough for us. We knew we were all there. But when I graduated and I came back to Sapulpa, those who did not have to go away to school like I did, they were still here speaking the language. And they say, "Can you still talk?" I'd say, "Well, I can't make a sentence." I said, I know the words, but I haven't used the language. I haven't used it. And it's true. You can, because I miss it now, because I don't have the elders around to talk to that I used to talk to all the time. What's your name? Hello,
Agalasa, Nedjadit Netchi Sandle, Shushpa Honzogini, Ujiha Zet Yada, Seminoliha Zet Yada, Gochatla got wedine, Ujiha got wedine, Dahe Okomfe, Abe Sedo Shanle. So this is Chaske Ashtale, Turning Heart, and it's my grandson, and his mother, he's now 2 years old, and his mother has only spoken to him in Yuchi language all of his life. She's never uttered a single word of English to him. And I'm the same way with him. I only talk Yuchi language to him. So he comes to the Yuchi house most days of the week, and he gets to talk back and forth with the elders. He sometimes maybe gets a little bit shy, doesn't always want to speak out, but it's very fun and very rewarding to have him interacting in the language. And it's very, it's kind of, I don't know what to call it, it's very cute when in Yuchi language they call me Shushpa, but he usually sounds like he's saying Poopa, which is so, it's very cute, to have this name coming out. So he does really good, and so most of the things that his functional language is in Yuchi, but there are English words that he hears around from other people and picks up some of those words, but his actual sentence structure and thinking is in the Yuchi way, because that's all he's ever heard from his mother and myself all of his life. And then his father, Giles Turning Heart, is, we call him Yalewi in the Yuchi way, and his Nakate, and his, he does use some Lakota language as well, so he's picking up some Lakota words to go with it.
But now we have some teenagers, 14 and 15-year-old girls, and maybe 2 or 3 boys that can carry a conversation, and that makes me real happy, because knowing that they can do, and they want to learn, and they learn so fast, even just like him. I just can't believe that. It's almost unbelievable. But then you hear it, you see them, and I just look forward every day to being with them. Tires me out. I'm glad to get home. And just like they ask me every day, "How are you? Did you sleep good?" I said, "I sleep good every night. I really do."
What a neat little story there, and it was so fun to be able to hang out with little Chaske and Maxine and Dr. Richard Grounds and Ryan Hill. They all do a wonderful job there at the Yuchi House, and I want to thank them for having me up, and I hope everyone enjoyed that story. Our last feature of the week, I don't know if you remember a few weeks back, I talked with Pat Crofts, the CEO of Muskogee Creek Nation Casinos, about ball and dice legislation being passed in Muskogee Creek Nation casinos and really tribal casinos in Oklahoma, but also a bit of news coming out nationally as well, with sports betting being sports betting being allowed now as well. So we look what that does with tribal casinos, and there was obviously a lot of questions. And because of that, Pat Crofts, his organization, Creek Nation Casinos, thought it'd be good to have a press conference where he maybe talk to some of these questions. So we got a press conference with Pat Crofts here regarding sports betting in tribal casinos.
It's very early right now. We think certainly this will pave the way for responsible and legalized sports betting around the country, and particularly here in Oklahoma. But for us to go forward with it, first, the state has to pass legislatively. They have to change the law, and our compacts will have to be amended. And then most of us, sports betting is something that we wouldn't probably do on our own. We would partner up with there are large national, international companies that do the sports betting. We think things like daily fantasy sports betting, things like that would be extremely popular. And just straight up betting would be also, but we're probably a long ways away at this point. It is. There are a lot of people that, people go to Las Vegas primarily for other types of gaming, but if the Final Four's on or, something like that, they'll stop at a sports book and place a bet. And there are other people, that's all they will bet is sports betting, and that's why there's so much illegal sports betting now, because people do like to bet. And you look at any newspaper, you can read what the point spread is on any game around the country, and there's an awful lot of illegal, untaxed, unregulated sports betting that's occurring around the country. Most casino gaming is, it's a mathematics, and it's probabilities. And with sports betting, you don't really know that. You do have people that are really smart people that they set the sports lines and the betting lines, and they know what players are hurt and what players aren't and things like that, and they try to even that up. But it's not, with sports betting, it's not necessarily all just, numbers and probabilities, and it's extremely high risk. And I've been involved with it in Nevada, which was the only jurisdiction that did have it, and there's very large swings. The outcomes of a baseball game, basketball game, football game, whatever, it's a very risky business. That's why I mentioned earlier that going into it, I think most casino tribal gaming like ourselves would partner up with someone, and they can spread the risk over large volumes. And it would depend on what they do allow us to do. I think it will be not the major part of our betting. It will help. It'll make money for the state for education, and money for the tribes. But gambling here in Oklahoma is primarily the electronic gaming machines, secondarily the card games. Yeah, but sports betting would be. We're like here at our complex where we've spent a lot of money, and we're a fairly nice regional resort and a full-service resort, and people do come here, and quite honestly, they're kind of luckily the legislature just passed the ball and dice, but we have people here. We've literally had people from all 50 states in the country stay overnight in our hotel here in the first year of operation, and a lot of them were very disappointed when they went to a crap game and they didn't have a set of pair of dice to roll, or you go to a roulette game and there's not a wheel with the ball or the P that drops. And be the same way, with whatever happens here with sports betting. It'll be, there will be some impact, but it's not going to, change any of our lives permanently. It'll be more a better experience for our customer. Well, I think what the legislature's out for the year now, I think. If not, they're really close to it, so it would come up. I can't imagine they're going to have a special session just for this, but it'll come up in the next session. And you know, there's a number of states that have already passed legislation. They were anticipating a positive outcome in the Supreme Court case, and a number of states have been very proactive, and they've passed laws. And I think the state of Oklahoma will be able to see, you know, what some of the other states have done and what may or may not be working, you know, and then fashion the legislation, you know, in the correct manner. No, we didn't, but if it's legalized, we'll find a place. I mean, we have a sports bar, and, you know, there are some casinos that have put in, you know, a counter for Paramount Mutual, you know, off-track betting for horse racing. And so it doesn't take up a big space. I mean, if you've been to you know, in Las Vegas, there are the Superbooks, you know, there's gigantic, but that's for race and sports betting. And as my understanding is, this legislation was for the sports betting, and the space is for all of your you know, your screens and your odds boards and things like that for a lot of the horse races. But we'll find a place. No, we did not anticipate this, you know, when River Spirit Casino was designed 2 or 3 years ago. But when it's passed, we'll certainly find a place. With the exception of Utah and maybe Hawaii, just about every state that has some form of gaming now has been looking at this. And, you know, the daily fantasy sports betting is just taking off like wildfire. I think that's where most people are probably looking at it from that standpoint. You know, the individual betting, you know, betting on the individual games, you know, that's going to be popular, but everybody likes to jump into the fantasy sports games. There's so many leagues around. I mean, we have a lot of people that come here to our casino for their drafts. In fact, last time I was in this room not too long ago, there was a draft going on for one of the fantasy sports leagues.
All right, that's going to do it for another episode of Muskogee Vision. Thanks for hanging with us, everybody. I believe this has been episode, help me, buddy, help me, 614. All right, Jared Moore there with the assist. I laid it up. I get the points, but Jared Moore gets the assists, as always, behind the scenes doing the great work there. 614, guys. It's been quite a journey, and we want to thank you for joining us right here on our home, CW19 here in Tulsa, but also a lot of people out there joining us on our online channel want to continue. I know it's old hat, but I got to tell you every time before I leave, got to tell you to go onto our online channel, YouTube, search Muskogee Vision, hit the red button, subscribe. You're going to get our on-demand content as we upload it. Also, keep following MuskogeeMedia.com and get ready for Festival. Got a lot of exciting things coming up. We'll be talking with some people with the festival as it gets nearer and nearer. So we want to thank you for joining us. For Jared Moore, I'm Jason Salzman. I want to thank all of you guys. We'll see you next time right here on Muskogee.